Welcome back to my channel, everyone. My name is Dr. Cristina Cabello Santos, and I'm here today with Anja Humljan. So today is a little bit of a different topic than what I've been used to doing for you guys. And if you're completely new to my channel, please don't forget to click like and subscribe. So Anja, welcome to my channel, and thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me today. And so Anja is an architect. I met Anja in 2013 in New York City, and she has evolved in her professional life. And what I know about Anja is really fascinating. She's from Slovenia, I'm from Serbia, so we're both from former Yugoslavia. And that was one common thread that we had when we met. So I found that was so fascinating because I don't know a lot of people from my part of the world in New York. And one cool thing that I found out about Anja was that she was also a professional athlete. So we both have sports and movement in our background. So I definitely want to talk a little bit about that as I introduce her to you guys. And the best way is really to hear it from her mouth. So Anja, tell us a little bit about your background. Definitely tell the audience a little bit about your professional background in sports, and then I'll tie that into today's topic, which we'll talk about how our environment, especially urban environment, affects our mind and our overall health, because this is something that you started to specialize in. But I really want to connect people to your movement background, because I have a lot of guests who started in some type of sports or dance or movement profession, if you will. So thank you again for joining me.
Well, thank you for having me, Cristina, and hello, everyone. So my name is Anja Humljan, and my background is in architecture. So I was trained as an architect, but I was also a professional athlete, and as well as a yoga teacher. So I started teaching yoga at the same time as I started studying architecture. And already in my kind of like third years of studies, I was thinking like, wow, but you know, the way we are taught to analyze and design architecture, it felt as if it's something missing. We were focusing a lot on geometry, functionality, but you know, because I was a professional athlete, I was very much in tune with my body, with how the body interacts with the surroundings. And I was like, you know, there is so much more about this interaction with architecture, between us and the architecture. So I started exploring this field, and it took me all around the globe.
Yeah.
Do you want me to tell more like about this journey, or do you have any specific questions?
Absolutely. So I remember when you were in New York, you told me that you were starting to take photos, doing different yoga poses, intertwining your body with the architecture that surrounds you. So what was really the inspiration? You just mentioned briefly about it, but what was really the inspiration for you to even start that project? Because after New York, you went on to Spain and other places in the world. So what is it that really drew you to even start that? Because it was so unique, especially like close to a decade ago. It was something new.
Yeah, so you know, as I said, I started to explore this interaction with the environment and the human body, and I found out that, you know, the urban environments over or under stimulate our senses. So and this causes stress. And stress is the biggest cause of exhaustion and depression and illness in the developed world. So as an architect, I was always interested in how we can design architecture and urban environment that affects our whole body in just the right way. And I was keen on finding out a way to raise the awareness about this important interaction with the environment, with our whole body. And one day, as I was walking down the street in New York, I looked up and I saw scaffolding, and I was like, oh, how about if I kind of intertwine or start interacting with my body, with what already exists in the environment, in the urban environment, and show that there is actually that the environment defines me, and I, in a way, define the environment. And I initiated the first photo series. And this photo series was then published in a magazine, a New York magazine that was actually launched at Paris Fashion Week. And, you know, it kind of really exploded in a way, like people, it raised a lot of attention. And then there were some people who had a magazine in Paris, and they were really amazed by the photos, and they called me and said, do you want to do a series like this in Paris? And I said, of course. So I went to Paris, and the second series came to life. And then I came back home to Slovenia, and I was like, you know, that's my home. So my home deserves a photo series as well. And then I went to work to Madrid. And then another series, we did another series there. And then I had this 4 or 5 photo series that had been done in these different areas around the world. And I had this kind of theory that was supporting, you know, my interest and as an architect. And someone suggested, why don't you do a photo book? So yes, and then I actually put this idea on Kickstarter. And then it was successful, and I published a book that's called The Urban Yoga. And yeah, and it was sold in 20 countries around the world. And it also like a lot of it got a lot of attention from media as well, from around the world. I think it was in 50 countries that they published the news about this photo series, and how this architect, someone said a very bandy architect, is traveling around the world doing this photo series to raise the awareness about the importance that cities are designed not only by human but for human as well.
Yeah, it's so incredible because it was so unique. I mean, these days you see all types of contortionists and people snapping photos all over cities, all over the world. But really, when you set out to do this project, it wasn't from a perspective of just a yoga teacher taking beautiful stylistic photos on the street of New York City or streets of Paris or Madrid, but it was really, you're a professional, right? You have a profession like in architecture, and on top of that, you can contort your body into amazing shapes. So you're combining your amazing body, which is clearly healthy because of your mind, and putting it into a practice with architecture, which is so unusual, right? And even now, I feel like, yes, we can go to social media and see beautiful photography, but it's the story behind the photos and the awareness that you're trying to bring to humanity, really. Because I think you don't have to be in the world of interior design or even architecture to understand that certain buildings and certain spaces invoke particular feelings when we're around them or inside of them, right? You can go to someone's home and feel just horrible, or you could feel to like, oh my God, this is the most amazing space ever, right? And so that brings me really to my next question is, as a professional architect and someone who also designs spaces, what have you seen, whether working with other people in your profession or working with clients even, what do you notice as far as decorating our spaces? How does architecture or even interior design affect our state of well-being and our mind, really, because I think that is really, really important to bring to people's attention, because not too many people think about it. It's like, oh, I'll just throw whatever, this cushion there, this color, because I like it. But I think there's a science really behind it. So what can you tell our audience as far as your experience in creating spaces and how they make someone feel?
Yeah, that's actually a good question, because it kind of relates to why I started researching this topic. When I was a student of architecture, I already noticed that, architects give suggestions to their clients. And these suggestions are very much based on what's fashionable at that point. And when clients were refusing these fashionable advice, these fashionable plans, interior designs, they were kind of considered as people who don't have taste, who are not aware of what's fashionable right now, who don't have a sense of taste. And as I said, I always knew that there is much more to space than, or the environment and architecture, than what we see and what is fashionable. So I started doing research, and then I realized, that as I mentioned, the environment affects us not only through the sense of sight, but by the way it smells, by the way it feels when you sit on a chair, when you sit on a sofa, when you touch a wall with your back without even realizing that, all this kind of subconsciously affects the way we feel. And each of us is unique, because each of us has a different way of processing information that we get from the environment through our senses. For example, some of us process information from the sense of sight very fast. So these kind of people, it will be hard for them to concentrate in environments where there is lots of colors, where there is lots of different textures, because they will feel bothered, because they will see so much, they will have a hard time focusing. And then on the other hand, you have people whose brain is processing a bit slower the visual information. So these people would need some kind of more input from the environment to stay alert, to stay focused. So these people would need more colorful environments. They will need to have more shelves, not so much closed. So they will need to have things displayed, so they would know where is each book, where is, I don't know, where is the computer, where they put some things. And then, for example, you have people whose brain is processing the sounds very fast, and these people will have a hard time focusing in open spaces. Like this kind of people will have a hard time living in lofts. They will have a hard time. They will make mistakes in offices where there is no walls, something that's really kind of popular right now. Co-working spaces are mostly open spaces. So, and people, so each of us has individual needs, and so that's actually the program that I have just created, is that you can make an analysis of the senses for each individual, and then you can advise according to the results.
That's brilliant. I mean, the thing is, I never used to think about environment and my personal space in that way, just focusing maybe like, oh, I don't like clutter, or I like a little bit of an organized chaos, I like a splash of color, but not too much, but never understanding why is that the case. So when I recently took your workshop for the Architecture Fest of Singapore, ArchiFest, it was really fascinating for me to hear that there is this scientific analysis based on our senses and how we take in information and the stimuli from our environment, to understand then how to decorate our spaces to correspond with our sensibilities, which I think is just so unique as far as designing space for someone. And if you can tell our audience a little bit more about, you said there's a particular questionnaire, right? So you designed a new program, and you'll be leading, or you started leading people already through a series of 8 weeks or so, if I remember correctly. And it's 120 questions, right? Questionnaire. So it's quite in depth. So how do you approach all these different types of people? Are you working with people in a group setting? Are you working with people one-on-one? How can you meet the needs of all these individual sensibilities to create spaces for them?
Mm-hmm. So the consulting that I have works. So now I say, like, I work in stress reduction, because as I mentioned, the urban environment and contemporary environments either over or under stimulate our senses. So, and this causes stress. And stress, as I said, is the biggest cause of exhaustion, depression, illness. So this stress reduction consists of an 8-week program. So this 8-week program is called mindfulness-based stress reduction. So I teach people mindfulness and how to observe themselves, how to focus their attention on this moment, so that they become more aware of how they react to certain situations, how they respond, like to life in general. And then there is this other side of this program. This is the sensory assessment. So this is kind of like the stress reduction, but kind of advanced. So I advanced it with this analysis of the senses. And this analysis is done online. And it consists of 120 questions. And then once the analysis is done, I see how their senses work. And according to that, I create a manual with like this analysis. So I explain to people how their individual senses work, how their sense of smell, sight, taste, hearing, the sense of movement and balance work. And then according to that, I give them advice on how they can decorate, redecorate, redesign their bedroom, their living room, and their working environment. You know, it's a place where we spend a lot of time. So therefore, it's very important that this space, so offices, our working environment, really supports our senses and stimulate them just right, not too much or not too less, too little, right? So it's just right. So it's kind of like a really holistic program. So on one hand, we have this mindfulness-based stress reduction, which is 8 weeks, and it's a lot about, we do a lot of, like, we do mindful yoga, we do mindful breathing, mindful meditation, sitting meditation, mindful walking. And then the additional thing is the analysis of the senses. And then according to that, I give advice. And then people, because they have this heightened, they kind of developed a heightened sense of how they feel. They can then observe how this advice that I gave them, how this works, how they feel, and then they can adjust according to how they feel. And yeah.
Absolutely. I think the mindfulness component is extremely important, because even in my work with Chinese medicine and acupuncture, that is one thing that I always teach people, right? Because people say, oh, I don't meditate. Oh, it's hard for me to do this or to do that. And it's mindfulness. It's not about sitting still and just getting rid of all your thoughts, which is also another way people misperceive meditation. It's really not to get rid of all the thoughts, but it's to not allow the thoughts to control you, right? So you have more control over them. But I think that that mindfulness concepts, and you had us practice a little bit of that in the workshop that I took with you, is once you're in the present moment, once you're able to even feel your skin against the object that you're sitting in or where your hands are resting, and just fully dedicating all of your senses to that present moment, that through time can get rid of all this mental clutter that is preventing you from seeing your environment in the first place and understand why it affects you the way it does, right? So by teaching people this mindfulness element, you're allowing them to declutter their minds so they can be more aware and present in their current space, and then be able to experience the changes that you have given them to try, and then adjust them as you're going on through the 8-week period, correct?
Yeah, what mindfulness gives you is actually, it allows you, or it tells people that it's okay to be aware of things that are both pleasant and unpleasant. Being with the whole range of your experience. So even if your mind is cluttered, yeah, let's see, what is this clutter? You know, how does it work? What thoughts are, which thoughts are coming, which are leaving? I mean, what thoughts are coming, what thoughts are leaving? What is this? So it's not only just to push away the clutter, but becoming aware of everything, because this is a way of knowing yourself better, of knowing your environment better, and knowing the people that surround you better. And then once you are aware of like the whole spectrum, then you can make decisions that are more aware, and you're more aware of the decisions that you make, and they're more in tune to what is actually happening within you and outside of you.
Yeah, I think you bring them more into the sense of alignment with themselves, right? Because when people are not present with the pleasant and the unpleasant, like you said, um, people are not really in alignment with their true self, with their higher self, what I like to call it. And now, if I can ask you just to explore that further into the realm of actually experiencing, let's say, urban environment as far as facades, architectural facades, right? When I walk the streets of New York City, I love that I can see such diversity. You have on the same block, you have a building that's very European looking, and then you have a building filled with glass and all mirrors, right? So how can you how can you guide someone in the exploration of this outer space and not feel overwhelmed? Because I know a lot of people that come to New York City, it can be a very overwhelming energy, right, of the city. There's a lot of buzz. It has changed a bit with the what has happened since 2020, but definitely you still feel that that energetic buzz. So how can people navigate these humongous metropolis places and not feel the overwhelm, for instance?
Well, I would say it's not so much about not feeling overwhelmed. It's about recognizing that, okay, yes, I feel overwhelmed. And then just observe, okay, right now I feel overwhelmed. How does this show up? Okay, I feel that, I don't know, my heart is beating. I don't know, I feel like some heat in my cheek. And a headache is starting. And then just observing myself as I walk down the streets, and then suddenly, do I notice any changes in how I feel? And then perhaps I notice, oh, now I feel a bit better. How does that feel? Okay, I feel that my breathing is slower. And then I look around and then I see, okay, so what does this environment consist of? So then I become more aware of, oh, okay, this kind of environment, for example, I don't know, someone will see that the buildings have changed in a way that, I know it's not so much brick walls, but it's mostly, I don't know, glass facades. And so, oh, okay, so this kind of environment apparently is calming me down a bit, you know, so it's about being aware moment by moment as you are walking from A to B, traveling from A to B, and acknowledging and realizing how does each individual environment affect you. And then you get to know each other better. And then, okay, so if I need to feel more agitated, because sometimes people need that, because some people feel more productive after that. So, okay, then I go into this kind of environment. Oh, so, but then I need some to calm down. I remember that this kind of environment calmed me down, so I'll go there. You know, so it's about knowing and then having a choice of choosing according to what you need.
Yeah, I think that's brilliant. Really bringing awareness to those feelings that arise and then having the options and knowing where to go to feel a certain way, depending on what your needs are in that moment in time.
Can I just add something? I'm sorry.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's because I was mentioning mostly, I think, like how the facades look, but then it's also like noticing how does this environment where I'm at right now, how does it sound? Because this also has an effect on us. Or how does it feel? I'm sitting on a bench right now. Does it feel soft, or does it feel that it's, I don't know, uncomfortable? And how does it smell? You know, so like being aware of all the sensory stimuli, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. I think once a person is mindful and aware of all the senses that are involved, that's the key, really. It really is the key. So, thank you so much for these lovely explanations. I think it is a completely unique way of looking at design and architecture overall. And I hope the audience can draw some of their own conclusions based on that. But more than that, I would love for people to be able to get in touch with you. And if they decide to seek out your counsel in this way, that would be amazing. You have mentioned you just started a new program. So you have a website where people can reach you in other ways. And I'll also put that in the description box below the video. So please share that with us.
So the website's address is very intuitive. It's called returntosenses.com, and the Instagram has the same name, at returntosenses.com, because it's all about returning to our senses, and that's the invitation for everyone.
Wonderful, Anja. Thank you so much again for taking the time to chat with me and to shed some new light on how we can interact with our environment and how to make it better in accordance with our sensibilities and our senses. So I'll bid you farewell now, and until next time.
Thank you so much. It was great reconnecting with you, Christina.
Bye.